What's up, Retro Maniacs? Joe Day coming at you from Mike's Retro Trading Cards, and I am really excited about the video today. I had an opportunity to sit down with the president of Rittenhouse Cards, Steve Charendoff, and we talked about everything. We talked about his time at Fleer, his time creating Rittenhouse. We talked about Twilight Zone. We talked about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, of all things. He even broke some news during this interview, which was really awesome. And of course, we talked about some Star Trek cards because I can't have him on here without talking Star Trek cards. Really hope you enjoy this interview. Tell a friend, comment, like, all the YouTube stuff. But before we get to that, hit the music. What's up, Retro Maniacs? Joe Day coming at you from Mike's Retro Trading Cards. And today we have a very special guest. We have the president of Rittenhouse Trading Cards. We've got Steve Charendoff. Did I get that right, Steve?
You got it.
Yes, I've been practicing all morning.
Most don't. You got it.
Perfect. So this is really cool to have you on, Steve. I'm going to wax poetic a lot about Rittenhouse cards today, so just be prepared to be fawned over. But I know a lot of viewers out there, the content we put out, especially for non-sports, has gotten a lot of eyeballs recently. So having you on, really, really awesome. Thanks for doing this for us.
Yep, good to be here. Thank you.
So before we dive into the interview, I want to give a shout out to Henry over at Junior's Cards and Comics. He had mentioned he works with you quite a bit. He interacts with you quite a bit, and he and I had this little negotiation. I was buying some Patrick Stewart Rittenhouse autograph cards from him, and I caved on his price. Right, he gave me a pretty good price, but I caved and I said, you know what? If I pay your price, Henry, you got to hook me up with Steve's contact information so we can get him on the channel. So big shout out to Henry. I guess they have a store down in Austin. I don't know if you've ever been down there.
I've not been down there, but that is true.
Yeah, I definitely want to. I've been meaning to go down to Austin at some point anyway. So I definitely want to check that out. So
yeah.
So why don't you start off, Steve, with just kind of giving us a background of yourself as, a collector, how you kind of got into cards, basically, and then that journey all the way to being president of one of the best card companies out there.
Well, I appreciate that sentiment. I'll try to give you the quick version here, because it's really not a quick story, but. But I started out collecting cards as a kid. I just always had that collecting gene in my DNA, so to speak.
Yep.
As a kid, it was, baseball cards and wacky packages and, non-sport cards. Whatever came in trading card or even sticker format, I guess, as a kid. I used to go down to the corner store and, ride my bike and, I'd buy packs just like a lot of us did as kids.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know how many kids do that today, but
it's too expensive to do today, especially with sports cards.
I guess so. That's probably true, unfortunately. So there's an experience from childhood that today's generation doesn't really get to experience, like a lot of things, I guess. That along with maybe rotary phones and rabbit ears on the TV.
Right.
But
no remote controls.
Yeah. So I collected everything. Just got more and more into it as I got older. A friend in elementary school had introduced me to a collection of old trading cards that I thought were like incredible because I'd never seen older cards before. I'd only seen the new ones that I had collected, myself in real time, and just kept going with it. My mother would take me to flea markets, and antique shows, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And I was buying and selling cards as a teenager too, and I never set out to do this for a living.
Yeah.
I worked for the National Hockey League after college.
Oh, wow.
Thought I was going to do something in sports, perhaps, but anyway. moving it along to, how I got to where I am now. After coming to Philadelphia for business school, I ended up getting hired by a company called The Scoreboard, which pioneered mass marketing of autographed memorabilia, but they also produced trading cards. So one of the things they wanted me to work on for them was developing a hockey card product line, because I had worked in hockey, and then I got involved in other aspects of the industry. Ken Golden, by the way, of Golden Auctions.
Sure.
Ken was my boss back then. This is over 30 years ago now.
Yeah.
So I could tell you some real interesting stories about those days, but
we're gonna do that for part 2 of this interview,
but
right?
that'll have to be another segment. Anyway, so then Fleer hired me at a very opportune time. That was around 1990, fall of 1994. So they were just getting the Marvel trading card line going at that point, and they wanted to expand into some other areas, and so they hired me along with some other people to get that going. They were primarily a sports card company at that point, but we were also part of Marvel, the whole Marvel empire. So Marvel Comics was sort of a sister company to us. And then, so I ended up getting knee deep into entertainment and developing all sorts of really good relationships and contacts. And I worked on Star Trek.
I have some Star Trek behind me, Steve.
What's that?
I have some Star Trek behind me right now, Steve. So.
Yeah, I can see. So that sort of got me going into the world of Star Trek, and I'll tell you a funny story about that. I realize I may be taking up a lot of time telling this, but
no, this is great.
But Ken Baroff, great guy. Was sorry to see him leave the company. Ken had been at Skybox when Fleer bought Skybox in '95, and so the two companies merged, and they brought basically the operation from North Carolina, where Skybox was based, up to New Jersey, where Fleer was based. And they weren't going to keep everybody on. There was too much duplication of responsibilities and that sort of thing. And some people just didn't want to move, and Ken didn't want to move. And he had been the Star Trek guy there. And I remember, this is like around the summer of '95, I think, spring of '95. And Ken and I had lunch. We were talking about Star Trek. He knew that I was going to take it over. And he said, Steve, this is probably really good timing, because I just don't know that there's anything more that I can do with Star Trek than I've already done. He's done the 30th anniversary set, or the 25th anniversary
25th.
set.
I have a binder of that set
with
the holograms in there down in my den right now.
and all that was running through my mind was, oh my God, like, I am coming in at the right time, because all I could think of was how much I could do with Star Trek that had never been done before. So it was sort of a perfect moment for both of us. Ken wanted to go do other things with his career, and he felt that he had kind of run out of steam with Star Trek. And I was just like a kid in the candy store. It's like, hey, wait a minute. There's never been a card set, in the modern era anyway, fully dedicated to the original show, which was my favorite. And no one had been signing autographs at that point for any part of Star Trek. There had never been an autograph card before. So the very first autograph card we ever did was the Brent Spiner oversized autograph from was that First Contact? I think that was First Contact. It was the oversized card.
I just the ones that were a little bit longer, like skinny,
like
rectangular.
Wide Vision. What Topps calls Wide Vision.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was sort of my entree into Star Trek, and I worked on other things too. I worked on the DC Comics line. I worked a little bit on the Marvel line, although not too much, until the very end, when Fleer was starting to get out of the entertainment business.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually the last guy at Fleer who was 100% dedicated to the entertainment line. They really wanted to get out of entertainment and focus solely on sports. And basically, the mission that I was given was, Steve, we have these licenses. We got to do something with them. We've got to burn off the minimum guarantees, whatever. We still have to put out some products. He says, just don't screw it up, and you'll be fine. And I knew I wasn't going to screw it up. I think I did a little bit better than that.
Yeah. So were you involved with like the Flair set, which is iconic now, Marvel Masterpieces, things like that?
That started before me.
Okay.
The sets that I kind of put my stamp on at Fleer with Marvel. Well, the first one actually was Marvel Creators Collection, I believe.
Okay. I remember
which was
that.
the first product to have a sketch card in every box.
Okay.
Although, now this is a story that, my former colleagues at Fleer might dispute, but I'm sticking to it. This is my story.
Well, you're here. They're not.
That's exactly right. So let them come on the show and they can say their own thing, whatever they want to say. But I remember they were working on the Fleer Ultra Spider-Man set. This was, I guess, in '96 or '97.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
And they were looking for things to make that set more interesting. And, we were all working in the same part of the office and we would collaborate all the time. It wasn't, it wasn't like they were off somewhere else doing their own thing completely. Nor was I. So I said, hey, why don't you get Stan Lee to sign some cards that have little, drawings, like a little pencil drawing of something that, like, because Stan's not an artist, but everybody knows him and loves him. And, why not see if you could do that? And that's where the Spider-Man, I forget if they were full heads or half heads that Stan drew, but he did one of those, I think, just one card for that set. I think the idea was to do more than that, but I think that's all they got.
Yeah.
So that and the sketches that were in that set, that was my contribution, my first contribution to the Marvel product line. But
still going today in Upper Deck not every box, but yeah, sketches are huge.
So when we did when things sort of shifted and we were downsizing the entertainment department, as I mentioned before, like I was the last guy at that point. So those other people who had been there, they had left. I had responsibility not only for Star Trek and other franchises, but Marvel was mine too. So all of the entertainment, I was doing all of that. And so the first thing that I wanted to do was, hey, let's do a sketch card in every box.
Yeah.
And that's where that concept came from originally. And then we did Silver Age, which today is my favorite Marvel set, I think, that I've ever done. And I've done a lot of them and I love them all. But that one, just because it was from such an iconic period. The Silver Age to me is the greatest age of comic books.
Some of those right here, some Silver Surfer from the Silver Age, right?
Exactly. And the fact that we were able to get all of those artists, those living artists, John Romita Sr. in particular, who was sort of a hero of mine. I always thought of him as like the Mickey Mantle of comic book art in a way.
For sure.
And he was so great to work with. It just occurred to me, this has nothing to do with Rittenhouse. I'm talking about really my old
No, we're talking about your journey. This is,
yeah.
I could sit here and listen to Fleer and Skybox stories for an hour. So we're definitely going to have to bring you back at some point.
Yeah, there's lots of them. I can tell you that. Some good, some not so good, especially since the company's no longer around. I left in January of '99. The company survived a little bit longer. But, I'd like to think, when I left, that was it. They couldn't hold it together. And here I am over 25 years later, still doing my thing.
And to interrupt you real quick, I'll tell you, like, some of the stuff that Upper Deck is doing nowadays, the only reason people love it is because of the IP that was used by Fleer and Skybox all those years ago. Like those are some iconic inserts that they put in cards now that you were talking about and doing back in the late 90s. I mean, if Upper Deck was just Upper Deck, I don't think they're as successful with Marvel as they have been.
No, I would agree with you. And I think one person who deserves a shout out on that count is Bill Jemis. Bill was my original boss at Fleer, and he was the guy who masterminded all of that that renaissance, I guess you could call it, in terms of Marvel cards, because Comic Images had been doing it, you know, like in the late 80s, early 90s, and they were putting out really basic, kind of cruddy looking sets where it would just be like pickup art from the comic books, and you know, it wasn't real nice stuff. It was, I mean, it's okay. At the time, it was fine. I mean,
it's nostalgia now, but at the time, it was like, oh,
I mean,
wow,
look
at this
every
Prism
era.
card.
You know, look, you could look back at 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle rookie card year, and you know, you look back at that set, and it's like, you know, that's not the most attractive looking set, but by today's standards, but back then, that's what it was. So, you know, we evolved, and but Bill really was the brains behind that. He created those brands. He created, you know, Marvel masterpieces. He created Flair. He created Metal. He was the guy who came up with those concepts. Brilliant guy. I love Bill. I didn't work for him for that long because he moved on shortly after I was hired, but I still keep in touch with him, and just like, you know, to me, he's not given nearly the appreciation that he probably deserves for what Marvel trading cards have become over the years. And to your point, those brands are iconic now,
they're endearing.
They're the focal point of that marketplace. So anyhow, I left. I really can't tell you the whole story about my leaving without taking up all the time we have left. But let's just suffice it to say that I'd sort of had enough. They had enough. We agreed to part ways. I started Rittenhouse Archives, and it was just a good opportunity, good timing, I think, for me, because the company at Fleer was getting out of the entertainment category, and I knew there were opportunities. The people certainly who were involved with the Star Trek franchise knew me well. I knew them well. They knew my commitment to it. They knew what I could do. And so it was sort of a natural that when I started my own company that I would take on that product line, which I did. And we've had it ever since. Star Trek is the one constant throughout the entire history of Rittenhouse to this day. And you know, I always think back to that conversation with Ken Baroff, and I get a chuckle. I haven't seen Ken in ages, and I would.
You should send him a box of Strange New World season 2 when it comes out, just to let him know that things are still going well with Star Trek.
Things are still going. We haven't quite run out of ideas yet.
Right.
And anyhow, so you know, we had the license for Star Trek. We quickly got the license for Twilight Zone, which was a franchise I had tried to get started at Fleer and couldn't convince the powers that be that it was worthwhile. And that's a whole other story. But to my benefit, you know, they declined, and I picked it up and ran with it. And we've now made, I mean, we don't do a Twilight Zone card set every year, of course, but I think over the 25 years, we've done about 6 of them, at least. All have been very good sellers, and there's still more demand today. I mean, unfortunately, the franchise being as old as it is, there aren't too many more actors who are left alive who could sign for us who haven't already done so. So that's a little sad in a way. But when we do find somebody new, I mean, we just found Jamie Farr, actually, which
oh, wow.
I didn't even know Jamie Farr was in the show, even at the peak of when we were making those cards, you know, back in the early 2000s.
Everyone knows him from MASH, obviously, but I didn't know him from Twilight Zone.
You know, it's one of those things where in this modern age of information where, you know, back in 1999 and 2000, when we were really getting things going with that product line, there just wasn't as much information about cast lists, and
Right.
he wasn't identified as being part of his episode because I think he just wasn't in the credits. He
Mm-hmm.
was kind of he was a guy who shows up for a very short stint in the very beginning opening scene of the episode. Um, and then it wasn't until like in the last 5 years or so that his name suddenly popped up. How people
Yeah.
come up with this stuff. It's amazing to me.
IMDb is amazing to find this stuff
Yeah,
out
but
anymore.
I don't even know if it was IMDb, but well, maybe it was. But
Yeah.
in any case, we discovered that he actually had been on that particular episode, and we contacted his agent, and he was excited to participate in it. That's one of the cool stories about dealing with talent. I will tell you that, and Twilight Zone is the best example of this,
Yeah.
because a lot of the talent that we've worked with over the years for Twilight Zone has been retired because of just
Mm-hmm.
due to age.
Right.
And it's enabled me to deal directly with a lot of these people because they may not have an active agent or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I end up speaking to a lot of them directly about our projects. And I will tell you that to a man or a woman, every one of them has a fondness and a story to tell about how
Mm-hmm.
wonderful it was to work on Twilight Zone, how iconic Rod Serling was, and how
Yeah.
wonderful he was to work with, and have that opportunity to work with him at a time, especially like you think back to all these actors: Jack Klugman, Burt Reynolds, William
I
Shatner,
was just
Leonard
going to ask about
Nimoy.
Shatner, actually. Have you had
Yeah,
Shatner sign he's done a lot of the Star Trek sets.
yeah.
Does he have Twilight Zone
Oh
autographs as
yeah,
well?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He's for both episodes, and he's signed for us multiple times.
Yeah.
Um, Shatner is probably the single most important slash influential talent, I would say, in the history of Rittenhouse
Oh, wow.
Archives. And I say that because obviously his place in Star Trek mythology is, it goes without
Mm-hmm.
any explanation how important he is, and what he means to the fans who collect the
Mm-hmm.
cards and the fans in general. But we've made trading cards not only for Star Trek that he's signed, but let's see here. Twilight Zone, he signed several times. Outer Limits, I think he signed for $6 Million Man.
Oh, wow.
Oh goodness, I'm forgetting. There's been so many franchises that we've worked with, and he's
Mm-hmm.
shown up in so many of them, often in these smaller roles. Um, but he's signed.
I'm holding out hope for a Boston legal set from Rittenhouse.
Uh,
Come on, man. Denny Crane
uh,
autos?
mm, that one
Probably
might
not.
that one might wait a little while. But he's been in so many different things, and I can't think of them all off the top of my head right now. But it's been
Yeah.
so many different things, and he's signed so many times for us, and he's been so generous to us. I mean, whenever we've needed something, he's been very accessible and very
How does that
cooperative.
work with actors and artists and the different talent you need autographs from? Like, do you
Mhm.
just work through their agent? Do they come to you guys? What's that process like?
Usually, we work through an agent or a manager, um, and occasionally we work directly with the person. Depends on really who it is
Yeah.
and what level of you know, red tape, I guess you could call it.
Right.
There is for whoever that actor or the talent artist might be. Um, but the great thing about that part of this business for us and for me personally, I started doing this before anybody was doing it.
Hmm.
Going back to my Fleer days, when we did the first set of Star Trek TOS cards back in '97, um, you know, most of those actors had appeared at conventions,
Right.
here and there. So they were used to making those kinds of periodic appearances, and getting paid to sign cards, or getting paid to sign autographs, not cards. Um, but in order to do that, they'd have to travel to the show. They'd have to, be in a hotel away from home. There's hassles with that.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, I showed up with all these opportunities to do the same sort of thing, but you didn't have to travel. You didn't have to, be inconvenienced in those ways. Dealing with the public directly, taking pictures and all that kind of stuff, which for some of these actors is a hassle.
Yeah.
And they might like doing it every once in a while, but sometimes they don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And, we developed, relationships with all these, especially with the Star Trek casts. And we go back to them repeatedly. So the relationships, were developed very early on. I mean, we're talking about almost 30 years now. And so it becomes very easy. And they look forward to it because it is so easy. It's, look, they get paid. They don't have to go anywhere. They can do what they do at home for the most part. But anyway, we've forged relationships throughout the whole Hollywood community, and the artistic community too, when we were doing sketch cards. So, those relationships count for a lot. I mean, to me, a lot of what makes business fun and successful are the relationships.
For sure.
I think, look, it's a reason why. I mean, I use the example of, say, Sarah Michelle Gellar, who was Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So for years and years, Inkworks had that license to make the Buffy cards. That was the cornerstone of their business. They never were able to get her to sign cards.
Oh, wow.
And so that was like a big gaping hole in their product line. I mean, I think, the analogy for me would be like if I could never get Shatner to sign Star Trek cards or Nimoy or
Patrick Stewart, my favorite.
Or Patrick Stewart. Exactly. So, I remember one day I was working on some other project. I can't remember what it was. I think it had something to do with Chronicles of Riddick, maybe. So this is going back like 20 odd years, so roughly, and or 15 years maybe. Anyhow, I remember having the conversation with this agent who I had discovered, I think through IMDb actually, while I was cooking up a deal for this agent's client, who was not someone who was a star. And I said, "Hey, by the way, you represent Sarah Michelle Gellar, right?" And she said, "Oh yeah. You want to do cards with her?" And I said, "Yeah, let's do it." And so I went to was it Fox? I think it was Fox at the time.
That had the distribution to
who owned Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I said that, "Hey, we would like to make the Buffy cards. We have Sarah Michelle Gellar on board, if we can do that." And they said, "Well, sure." So that's how that product line got started, and how we ended up with the very first autograph cards that she ever signed as Buffy, and maybe the only ones at this point. There were so many stories like that where the relationships made the opportunities what they were. I mean, we had Robert Downey Jr. sign Iron Man cards,
which are iconic cards now in the hobby. I don't know. One of my questions to you was going to be, do you guys like pay attention to the secondary market with some of your cards? Yeah. And you should know. I mean, you obviously know some of your cards, Rittenhouse cards, are like the benchmark for cards in certain, Marvel. That Robert Downey Jr. card is one of the grails, the holy grails of collectors. So I wasn't sure if that was something you kept an eye on.
I feel similarly about that particular card. I mean, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, not that we knew at that time that he did those cards for us, that he signed those cards. I mean, the expression Marvel Cinematic Universe didn't exist at that point. I mean, I don't think anyone knew how big
it was just
he was going to become.
Right.
Yeah, and he's now the focal point of that whole phenomenon.
Yeah.
And so, look, we had a relationship with the agent there. got done.
Yeah.
I could think about, many others. I remember trying to get Halle Berry when we were doing James Bond cards. I remember
Oh,
trying
yeah,
to,
yeah,
to
yeah.
get her to sign cards for years, and like 10 years we're trying to get
Yeah.
Halle Berry to sign cards, because at that point she was really, really huge in the industry. Not that she still isn't, but back then, she was
She was
doing Monsters
Storm.
Ball and winning
Yeah.
Oscars and getting
Yeah.
nominated and all that kind of stuff. And I remember I wish I could remember who the actor was. I guess I could probably piece it together if I really wanted to do a forensic examination of this.
Right, right,
But
right.
I remember I was doing a deal for some no-name actor. Like, it was like the smallest deal that I probably ever done, for some no-name actor that was represented by the same agent that Halle Berry was represented by. And we did, like, the agent needed to get this, like, the person was trying to make rent or something, it was like
Right.
that sort of
Oh, okay.
situation. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
the agent calls me up and says, hey, can I get a deal for this person? They're struggling, and maybe it was like a Star Trek actor who was in like one episode, the red shirt guy or something like
Right,
that.
right, right.
So anyway, I said, look, I almost never will say no when people approach me in business like that. Like, I'm a yes guy. It's all about building relationships,
Yeah.
because you never know where. And this is another great example of it. Like, okay, it's not like I can't use the cards, but it
Right.
wasn't like I was going out of my way looking for this guy. So I did the deal. It was like maybe $1,000 deal or something. Uh,
Right.
Relatively small deal in the big scope of things.
Hmm.
It might even have been less. But anyway, it turns out that agent represented Halle Berry. Long story short,
Perfect.
Halle Berry suddenly signing James Bond cards for us,
Yeah.
and it
Die Another
now.
Day, right? She was in Die Another
Yeah,
Day
Die
with,
Another
yeah,
Day. Now,
Pierce.
just to add just a slight bit of context to this, when I say that sometimes it's about those relationships, and Sarah Michelle Gellar and Halle Berry and all that, like, these actors do change their agents fairly often at times.
Yeah.
So it may very well have been that the person I was dealing with for Sarah Michelle and for Halle Berry, might have been different than anyone else had been,
Hmm.
trying to get them to do things. So sometimes it's just timing and good luck and the relationship, and the agent is different, and they know who we are. They know that we're not messing around. The client's going to get paid. There's not a
Hmm.
risk there. It's, we're established, and now we've been around for over 25 years, and I've been
Yeah.
doing this even longer. So, I think we're well into the many thousands of autograph deals with talent at this point. So
I gotta ask you about that,
yeah.
because so the thing that I really love about Rittenhouse, among many other things, but the thing I really love is the on-card autos.
Mhm.
Sports cards seem to avoid them for some reason. Like, it's so cheap for them to just have someone sign a sheet of stickers and slap them on a card, and they put
Yeah.
the wrong sticker on the wrong card. They're askew. They're just, it's terrible.
Yeah.
Your on card autos, when did that become like this cognizant, like, we need to have these on card, and we're not going to say, we're not going to bow down to stickers or anything like that, redemptions and
Yeah.
and the like.
All I can say about that is that I've been a collector all my life. I'm still a collector now. I've got, a very deep passion for this.
Hmm.
So, this isn't just business for me. This is fun. And I know when I make a card set, I'm thinking about what is it that I want to collect. And so, to the point about the autographs, I mean, it just never made sense to me to do stickers. To me, I mean, no offense to any of the other companies or the other people in the industry who use stickers.
Yeah.
I just
They're
don't
not
like it.
watching. They're not watching. You can offend them. It's fine.
I don't particularly like it. I don't know why anybody would like it. I and the interesting analogy. I was talking to one of my dealers about this. He made a really good point, and I think this is a great way of looking at it. So if you were to buy a football autographed by Tom Brady,
That's a good
would
one.
you like the football to have a sticker on it with
Yeah.
his signature? Or do you want to have that football with his signature signed right on the ball? I mean,
Yeah.
nobody collects a football with a sticker on it
Or a
that's been
jersey or
signed or anything
anything.
like that.
Yeah. That's a really good way to put it.
Or a Mike Trout or Aaron or Shohei Ohtani baseball. You gonna buy a baseball with a Ohtani sticker on
Yeah.
it? No way. You're never gonna pay for that. You'd like laugh at the dealer trying to sell it to you. Why is it any different with trading cards? Like that to me, that's the perfect way of looking at it.
Oh, that's a great analogy. I say to people all the time, you'll have collectors come out and say, "Oh, I don't have a problem with sticker autos. I like sticker autos." The reason they say that is because the cards they collect don't have another option. So they want to defend themselves and say, "Oh,
Well,
sticker autos are great." When they're not. If you
yeah.
have a choice 1-to-1, you're always going to take the on card.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. To me, it's a lazy man's way of creating trading cards. I'll be honest with you. That's the way I look at it. I mean, unless there's absolutely no alternative. Like, I mean, we've made some cut signature cards. Like we've done some autographs with
I
Gene
saw a DeForest
Roddenberry.
Kelly. You had a DeForest Kelly oversized cut auto in one of
Yeah,
the
that was
sets.
after he had
He had
passed
passed.
away.
Yeah.
I mean, Gene Roddenberry had passed away long before we even
Hmm.
started making trading cards for Star Trek. But if the person's still alive, I don't know. Like to me, what's the point? I mean, I realize that some of these people can be difficult to track down. Maybe you only have one opportunity. Maybe look in some cases the reality is I'll I'll tell a deep, dark, dirty little secret about this industry. We don't do this, but I know a lot of times what happens is that there's a show promoter who will bring in autograph guests.
Hmm.
Um, whether they're sports figures or entertainment figures, whatever the case may be, and they may have to guarantee that person a certain volume of signatures that translates to a certain volume of dollars.
Right.
They might get to the end of the convention and suddenly they're short of having sold all of the commitment. So what do? They phone up a trading card company in advance, usually, maybe sometimes not in advance. It could be after the fact too. But if the promoter is sitting there and let's say that he's committed, you know, 5,000 signatures to, you know, celebrity X. I won't name
Right.
any names, and suddenly they've only gone through 4,000 of them, with people buying tickets at the convention.
Hmm.
They got 1,000 signatures left. Well, what are they going to do? They're not going to just say, "Hey, Joe, thanks.
You
We'll
don't have
just
to do the
you
last
don't have to do the
1,000.
last 1,000." Hell no. They're gonna pull out a sheet of stickers and say, "Here, sign 1,000 stickers," and then they'll sell them to a trading card company.
Oh,
I
that's
mean,
crazy.
that happens.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so that's how, in many instances, these sticker autographs end up on trading cards. Now, in some instances, it may be that the company is just making a product and doesn't have all the cards printed in advance and doesn't know, maybe they want
Yeah.
to save some quantity of signatures for some future product that they haven't even conceived of yet. So they just stockpile the signatures, and then that's how they can save them
Hmm.
for a future product. Now, for us, I never really felt like I had to go about it that way because,
Yeah.
like with Star Trek, if I'm going to get, say, when he was alive, Leonard Nimoy,
Hmm.
he signed for us many times, but if I'm going to get somebody like Leonard Nimoy or William Shatner, who obviously is still alive,
Yeah.
and he just signed for us actually, he just did another signing. I'm going to put.
For what? Wait. Breaking news. For what? What's Shatner
Uh,
doing a
we
signing for?
we have we haven't announced any details yet, but we're going to have another big retrospective trading card set probably next year.
Where's my
That's
wallet? Damn it,
that yeah.
Steve. Come on, man.
um, Anyway, he some of those cards actually are pretty cool. He's done some auto
Yeah.
relic cards for us recently that
Oh, wow.
we were able to get some authentic costume material. But anyway, where was I going with this? Oh, yes. So, when I get any of these people to sign cards for me, and it doesn't have to be somebody as famous as Shatner or Nimoy. Sometimes it's lesser known
Mm-hmm.
actors who are part of the continuity of Star
Right.
Trek or whatever the franchise is we're working on at the time. We'll put multiple styles of cards together because we're thinking 3 or 4 years ahead.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a perfect science. Sometimes we'll have the card signed and then it's like, oh, wait a minute, 2 years down the road, we have a new concept. But in most cases we can still go back to the actor,
Yeah.
like it's not that hard. And so it always amazes me when I see these stickers on, some of these product lines that have longevity, like Star Wars or, Marvel, maybe some of the
Mm-hmm.
Marvel movies or TV
Oh,
shows.
yeah, they're sticker autos a lot of the time. Some of
And
the comic book art, like Chris Claiborne just did a signing for this recent Upper Deck product, and his were sticker autos. Blew my
yeah,
mind.
so yeah, I sort of scratched my head at that. I wonder, like, why do they have to do it that way? Why couldn't they have done like what we do, which is just think ahead and plan it ahead. And if you're if you're pretty much on the mark, 75 to 80% of the time for what you're going to be doing over the course of the use of those autographs, it's far more satisfying to the collector
Oh,
and
yeah.
to the dealer to have it that way. And I don't know. I don't mean to make a big speech about that, but you
No,
brought it
this
up,
is
and I'm a big believer in on card autograph,
we're
on card any or on item anything.
on
Going
item.
back
Yeah.
to the football analogy or the baseball
Yep.
analogy, it just makes sense to do it that way. So I don't know. Maybe part of it for me is that we've been in business for so long. We've developed so many good relationships over these years that it's easier for us, maybe for other companies, to get cooperation from the talent. Like I just know that if I need something more from Shatner, for example, like it's not a
Yeah.
big deal. And that's true in most cases for most actors who are part of most of our projects. It's very rare that we are in a situation where we have one and only one shot to get somebody to sign something. Because generally speaking, once somebody signs for us, they are happy with the experience.
Hmm.
They are happy to do it again and again. And like, Shatner, I think, has signed for us, gosh, over 25 plus years.
Well, I
I bet
can.
he's done at least a dozen or more signings for us. And most of the starring cast of all of the show, like Patrick Stewart has signed many times for
He
us. I
has
mean,
19 Rittenhouse autograph cards, distinct. I know this because I am
okay.
trying to collect all of them.
All
By,
right.
by the way,
Well,
so
thank God for people like you who keep track of those details, because I certainly can't. Like, if you would ask me how many cards has Patrick Stewart ever signed for us, I don't know. I would have probably said 6, 5. I don't know.
so I'm one of these completist type collectors, right? So I love the Next Generation, love Patrick Stewart. So I'm like, I'm going to collect every Patrick Stewart autograph that
Yeah,
he's done as a Star Trek signer, right? Not like Leaf has him signing stickers now and he's signing at Peace Stew and it kind of looks rough. And,
yeah,
like these are going to be the last ones. The ones from Picard season 2 and 3 are probably going to be the last ones he does on card with a full signature, unless you guys bring him back for something, because I think he
yeah.
has
Don't
been
don't
going to the
don't be too sure about that statement you just made.
oh
But okay,
Jesus. Okay, moving on. But
moving
anyway, I
on.
was saying that there's 19 Rittenhouse autographs. There's 2 that he did for Skybox, and at first I'm like, I'm cheating on Rittenhouse getting these Skybox autographs.
Well, those have
No,
been
I'm
my
not, because
those
they're
have been
you,
my products. He signed those for
right?
me at Skybox because
Yeah.
all of the Star Trek cards that were ever signed, except the brief period of time, and this wouldn't have, I don't think, been anything to do with Patrick Stewart. I'm thinking here. I left in January of '99. There was a cinema collection that came out right after I left, and I think there was I had started. There was a Deep Space Nine set. I think it was Memories from the Future, if I'm remembering that correctly. I think there were two Star Trek sets that came out
I think you're
after
right
I
about the
left. The Deep
cinema
Space
one.
Nine one, I had started it, and someone else finished it after I left. And then I guess we had also started, I think, that cinematic collection one.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was it. Everything else that involved autograph cards from Star Trek at Skybox, those were my projects.
I love it. I love
So
it.
you're not cheating on me. Don't worry about it.
Good. Okay, good. So a couple of things and we'll let you go. Really appreciate you spending this time with us. I wanted to go back to a point you made about, thinking ahead. I was watching a box break of Women of Star Trek Arts and Images. You had live on-card autographs from Majel Barrett. Like that
Yeah.
in and of itself, and Nichelle Nichols, both of which I think passed away by the time that set came out. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's the type of stuff, again, to wax poetic about Rittenhouse, that's the type of stuff I think collectors really appreciate, that you held some of that stuff back and you were able to put it into a future set. So this isn't really a question, more of a thanks for doing that, because that to see those cards come out of sets years after those two actors had passed away was
Mm-hmm.
really cool to see, so thanks for that.
No, you're welcome. That just sort of goes along with what I was saying before about when we get an actor to sign cards, we're usually thinking, years ahead and many projects ahead, as many projects as we can think of that
Yeah.
we can plan out in advance. And that's just what happened with those. Although I will tell you, in the interest of full disclosure,
Okay.
I'm not as sharp as I used to be.
Okay.
I've been in this industry a little bit of a long time now. So I remember when we were planning that set of the Women of Star Trek cards,
Hmm.
that last set, and I think it was the last one. And again, we're stockpiling autographs for future projects, and the cards that Majel Barrett had signed, I had totally forgotten about. They were buried in the back of one of our storage boxes of cards that we just like. We're going through, and it's like sometimes what happens. I'll just tell you a little sidebar story here about projects like that, where it's like Women of Star Trek or it's Aliens of Star Trek, or
Hmm.
so sometimes what we'll do is we'll just start stockpiling cards under a theme like that. We don't
Okay.
have a date for the project. We don't really have even a firm idea of what the project might consist of at the outset. But we know, okay, this is one of our brands. So we'll just start accumulating those cards. And we'll have a storage box of Women of Star Trek autographs. So if we're getting like with Strange New Worlds, if Jess Bush is signing cards for us as
Hmm.
she did last year, we're going to get her to sign Women of Star Trek cards because
Yeah.
it's one of our brands,
Hmm.
and we'll put them away. Majel Barrett, the last time she signed for us, and Nichelle Nichols, the last time she signed for us, we had them sign those kinds of cards, and then we just sort of we just put them away, and then we kind of forget about them. We know that they're there, but we kind of forget about them until we sort of reach a critical mass of signers and cards. So like at the beginning, maybe, there's only a few hundred cards, and then suddenly there's a few thousand cards, and then, 5
If you
years
need someone to
later,
help sort these cards, by the way, Steve,
yeah.
I'm in Pennsylvania. Let me know. I will be right
All
there.
right, I'll keep it in mind. So, there comes a point where it's like, oh wow, look at that. There's 10,000 Women of Star Trek autograph cards now. Let's think about putting out the next set of cards. And anyway, long story short, I had totally forgotten about those Majel Barrett cards, and it was just like, holy smokes.
Yeah.
She's been deceased now for I don't know how many years, and we had totally forgotten about those cards, and we thought, well, that's going to be one of the real hot cards.
Yeah, it was.
And sometimes you just get lucky.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't luck because we obviously knew what we were doing when we got them signed, but
But then as you're going through your cachet of cards, you're like,
I've just
oh,
got I've got so many projects in my head and so many different autograph deals in my head,
yeah,
and sometimes I collect cards this way too.
yeah,
This is not unique to the way I run my business. This is like, to me, this comes back to sort of the geek that I am when it comes to collecting stuff. So
yeah.
I collect lots of old cards, like 1940 Superman is one of my favorite
Oh, that's
sets. I
cool.
collect, old sports cards, old entertainment cards. I collect a lot of stuff. I collect wrappers. That's one of the high points for me personally. I love vintage wrappers.
At first, I thought you meant rappers like Run DMC. No, we're
No,
not. We're talking about
no,
card rappers.
trading
Okay,
card
all right.
wrappers. Like the 1940 Superman gum wrapper to me is just a beautiful piece of art.
Oh, that's awesome.
And there's so many examples of that. I've got a pretty advanced collection of vintage wrappers. But anyway, so I'll buy stuff. I pick things up on eBay. I go to conventions, whatever. I pick stuff up, and I don't always have time to sort through everything or put it in its proper place. So like, I'll have a closet where I'll just throw stuff. It's just like, this just came in today, from eBay, and I'm busy with everything else going on, so I'll just put it in the closet. And
Yeah.
then like a year later, I'll have a day where nothing's happening. It'll be a Saturday. I'm at home. There's no ball games on TV. It's like, okay, I'm going to pull that stuff out of the closet, and I find
Take a
things
look.
I just forget that I've even had. Like doesn't even. Sometimes I buy the same thing twice because I don't even remember. Like, I'm a Tom Seaver collector. I've bought the same Tom Seaver card twice, not realizing I bought it the first time.
You sound like someone who you didn't meet yet. Our buddy Eric, EP, as we call him, he's the same way, man. If you looked at the background of his setup, it's just cards just all over the place.
Yeah,
So yeah, he does the same thing. So it's
most
definitely
of the
not
time
just
I
you.
can keep track of it, but to me those days are. It's like, I have my own little birthday celebration, even
Yeah.
though it's not my birthday. It's like, holy smokes, look at all these things
Right.
that I guess I bought them. I don't remember buying them,
Oh, that's funny.
but here they are, and this is so much fun, and I love collecting, and
Yeah.
like, to me, the greatest thing about collecting is the pursuit of building a set of cards, like the
Hmm.
1940 Superman gum. Like, the best day was the day that I got the last card in the set, and the
Yeah.
worst day for me was the last card that I got in the set, because now I don't have anything
Now
more
you don't
to
have
chase
right.
after.
Exactly.
Like, okay, now I got to start a different set,
That's
and
that's another thing I love about the Rittenhouse products is, it might be a no-name red shirt guy, but if you want to build that master set like I did with Picard season 2 and 3, you
yeah,
need that random ensign from the bridge, right? You need everything. And I opened up 2 cases to get everything. But the journey to get there was the most fun part. I
yeah,
opened up famously my first box I opened up. I didn't record it for the channel and I still get crap for it from Mike, but I pulled a Patrick Stewart autograph. I'm like, well, now I have to put the whole set together. And that's what I really love about
yeah.
Rittenhouse specifically, but non-sports in general. I think sports cards, they don't do that anymore. They want to
No,
get that
no,
big hit and they want to sell it and make money. With non-sports,
yeah.
it's all about the journey of putting that
Right.
set together.
We've said that, even going back to my days at Fleer, we used to talk about this all the time. It's like, the mantra was, sports card collectors collect for the value, and entertainment card collectors collect for the love of
Such a
whatever the
great way to
subject
put that.
matter is. They love Star Trek, and they just want to have cards.
Perfect.
If there happens to be some residual value down the road, then great. If they have extra cards that they can sell and recoup some of their money, great. But what they really want is the cards that they can put in their album, in their 9 pocket pages, complete the set, put it in the bookshelf, look at it, enjoy it. Um, and to me, it's one of the reasons why I gravitated to this part of the industry, because to me, entertainment card collecting is more for the love of pure collecting. it's not all about, oh boy, I opened up this pack and I got a Derek Jeter rookie card and that's worth,
Right. Now
$10,000
send it
or
off to
whatever.
be graded and try and
Yeah. Now,
10x my money.
Now, realistically, as time goes by, those sentiments kind of soften a little bit, I guess, and there's a little bit more of that sense of what is it worth on the entertainment side. But still, there's just so many people that collect just for the love of collecting, and it isn't about the money. This is not a commodities market the way the sports card market has become. And because of that, I still love it. I guess if it became all about dollars and cents, like it probably wouldn't make sense for me to even make some of the products that I make. I mean, like we're working on Cheers right now. And,
you beat me. I was going to ask you about Cheers. I need to know about Cheers as a 45-year-old almost. My mom used to let me stay up late and watch Cheers when I was a kid. I saw that's coming out. I need to know about the Cheers set.
Well, we're still working on it, but Ted Danson has signed actually twice for us now, including inscription autograph cards and relic autograph cards.
Oh, wow.
In addition to, the usual full bleeds autographs and that sort of thing. John Ratzenberger, who played Cliff, he's signed for us already.
Some of his inscriptions would be hilarious, by the way, I'm sure. Maybe some Cliff notes
there's some Cliffisms in there. George Wendt is in the process of signing cards right now. Wade Boggs actually just signed cards for us as a crossover from sports to entertainment. That you never know what you're going to get when you approach an athlete.
They had a lot of great guest stars on that show. So
so he was one of them. And we've got a bunch of people like that lined up. So the project is still in the works. It's not complete by any stretch. We're still working on adding more signers. It's probably going to come out sometime in early 2025, my guess. But I'm not in a rush to do it. It's one of the nice things about owning my own company is that I'm not sitting here, worried about what I have to tell stockholders or that I have to make quarterly numbers or there are certainly some fundamental business realities that we all have to deal with in running a company, but for the most part, a project like that's just sort of that's a fun pet project for me. It's like, when I was at Fleer, I mentioned Twilight Zone. Like that to me would have been my pet project at Twilight Zone, and it would have made the company money, by the way, as it's made money for us along the way. But I couldn't, when I wasn't owner of the company back then. I couldn't just say, hey, I'm going to do this project whether you like it or not. Now I can do it. But look, I think the best thing that I can say about the way we approach our business and always have is that we want to make the best possible products that we can. We want to make cards that we all here want to collect, that I want to collect. I think about that first. And the business part of it takes care of itself. It's not that there aren't budgets that I have to pay attention to. It's not that there aren't, bills that I have to pay attention to and all that. But my approach is product first. Okay, what do we need to build the best product? Forget about what it costs. Just what does the best product look like?
Yeah.
Can we do it? Most of the time, the answer is yes. And that's what you get. So I like to think that, we're different in that way. Having worked for Fleer, which was all about money first and product second. And I know from experience over the years, knowing people who work for some of the other card companies, that approach is not always considered the way we do it. So,
and collectors I know will appreciate it even more knowing that you waited to get it right. I think too often the big sports companies, especially, they just want to jam it out there and give people a substandard product. So they just churn out money, where you guys, obviously money, like you said, is a factor, but getting it right for the collectors, I think, seems to be the history of Rittenhouse. It really does.
Well, I appreciate that. That ultimately that's the legacy that I want that I've wanted to create, and I think we've lived up to that for the most part. I mean, I guess there's always that one product maybe that you could look back on and think, maybe I could have done something better there.
Right.
But at the time, you know, we're always trying to put our best foot forward. And sometimes there are things that are out of our control too. I mean, you know, if we can't get a star of a show to sign for whatever the reason, or a guest star, or, you know, sometimes it just doesn't work out, and you make the best of it.
Yeah. Well, you've been very generous with your time. Real quick, I want to say I've been watching the private chat from Mike and EP on the side, and they are telling me we need to have you back on to talk about your time at Fleer and Skybox and all that stuff, because we're 90s guys. So we are fascinated by that entire thing. So we're going to have to steal some more time from you,
All
Steve.
right, another time. I'll start thinking of more stories from that time.
Yeah, and I would be remiss if I didn't say all three of us, myself and Mike, who you met, and our buddy EP, we're all from Central PA, which I believe is just a couple hours away from Rittenhouse. Okay, so I don't know. I think our subscribers, our viewers, and us would. I mean, maybe we could come down and check it out sometime. I don't know. Is that possible?
Well, we can see about that. I don't know. Never
Not
know.
to put you on the spot, but I'm putting you on the spot. I need to get down to Rittenhouse and go through some of those Major Barrett autographs.
Well, you know, it like with my closet here at home. You know, sometimes I go into the closet at Rittenhouse, and it's like, oh, look what's there. Look what I found. I guess we got another good product coming.
I'm so excited. I'm excited for all the products coming out. Steve, thanks again for coming on. This has been a blast. I've enjoyed it. I hope you had a good time too. And I hope our viewers love it. And I'm sure they will, because this was a really insightful 60 minutes we spent together. So I appreciate you coming on, sir.
No problem. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.